Victorians will remain under the toughest lockdown rules in the country for even longer. The Premier confirming what many feared as he unveiled a four-step roadmap out. Let's go live now to Andrea Carruthers in Melbourne. Andrea, take us through the plan.
Well, Danica, today's announcement will be certainly what many Victorians were not hoping for, that lockdown. It's in place until the end of September, the curfew in place till at least the end of October. And as for businesses, well, many of them still won't even be able to consider opening their doors for another 11 weeks. So there's a four-step plan out of lockdown. We'll take you through it now, beginning with the first step for Metro Melbourne. Now, this is from September 14th, so that's next weekend. In that, we'll see the curfew eased to 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Outdoor gatherings will be increased up to 2 people. There's also some reprieve for single households. Now, these are people who have been in a household by themselves, really struggling through these lockdowns. They'll be allowed to have one visitor at their home, and that 5-kilometre limit, it won't apply for that, but the curfew will. Now, also will be a bump to the amount of exercise and socialising time. That's up from 1 to 2 hours per day. And the one bit of reprieve for many families is playgrounds will reopen. We'll turn to the second step from September 28. Now, this is one of the caveat of 30 to 50 daily cases in the previous 14 days on average. So assuming we dip down to that, the changes from then will be outdoor gatherings up to 5 people for a maximum of 2 households. Childcare will open up. Schools will begin a phased return from prep to year 2, as well as those VCE students, so the years senior students, they will start a phased return. And also for exercise, outdoor training, people can start getting back with a personal trainer, and there'll also be some space for those gatherings to allow outdoor worshipping. Now, in terms of what this means for regional Victoria, well, from September 14, it actually will then kick into its second step. So it'll have those things such as the outdoor gatherings up to 5 people, the single household bubble and childcare, but also its schools will have a phased return for all, not just select age groups. Now, the third step, this comes for Metro Melbourne if they have less than 5 daily cases for 14 days, including less than 5 mystery cases across the state. Regional Victoria, it's likely to lock into that third step even sooner. The only caveat it has is less than 5 daily cases, but it can't have any mystery cases. Now, the big changes we'll see there, that curfew will be lifted. So from October 26, best case scenario, no more curfew in. There'll be no restrictions on the reasons to leave home, meaning you can go out for any reason. Outdoor gatherings, that'll be bumped up to 10 people. There'll also be a household bubble. So we know there's been massive issues around the amount of transmission which is occurring between these gatherings in home, hence the push by the government to get people outdoors. But that bubble will have up to 5 people per visit, and also outdoor exercise up to 10 people as well. Keeping with step 3, there'll be schools also potential more stage return. Cafes will finally go away from that takeaway only. They'll have outdoor seating in groups of up to 10. The shopping limit of 1 person per day will be lifted. And all retail, it'll also open. But the one big one here is whilst hairdressers get to open, beauty salons, well, they'll have to remain closed. Now, also with these events, weddings, funerals, they'll have increased numbers. Outdoor worshipping, also increased numbers. And for the first time, intrastate travel will finally be back on the table. But that is only once Melbourne and regional Victoria kick into the same gear. The last step, best case scenario from November 23. Now, this is if we've seen no new cases for 14 days statewide. So a pretty strong caveat there. That will see outdoor gatherings up to 50 people, home visitors up to 20 people, and weddings and funerals, well, they will apply as those indoor and outdoor limits go as well. There'll be no exercise restrictions, and finally a return to organised sports. On-site home auctions will return for the first time in many, many months. And cafes for indoor dining will finally return as well, up to 50 people, as well as entertainment venues opening with certain limits, including for a staggered approach when it comes to seated spectators. Now, there's 4 steps up to this COVID normal. Eventually, we could get to that if we see no new cases for the 14 days, no active cases rather for a period of time. And then with that, we'll have limits lifted on home visitors, outdoor gatherings, as well as eventually a phased return from working from home. Now, today, Danica, there's been some very mixed reaction to this. Particularly, the Premier was asked how he would keep people on board on this journey, given Victorians have already done this once. They did it through the first wave, and yet things went wrong, particularly with that hotel quarantine scheme. The Premier was asked how Victorians could be assured that if they played along again, well, the government would also play its role.
I apologise for the circumstances we find ourselves in. I apologise for the reality that we find ourselves in. But we can't change that. We can't simply wish that away.
So the roadmap out finally today, Danica. A lot to get through, but for many Victorians, particularly Melburnians, well, they would still be going to bed tonight with a deep feeling of uncertainty.